Everything is all good and dandy when you're at the peak of your success, but that only comes once. So how is it during the dark and gloomy times? Want to learn what has caused some of the largest companies to lose a large mass of players due to some unfortunate changes, whether it's through the means of new items in the cash shop that could create an unfair advantage, or changes to gameplay aspects affecting the original integrity of how the game was made. These MMOs have seen some brighter days and were some of the most hyped throughout MMO history, but due to either the lack of motivation to listen to their community or trying to seize the opportunity to milk their game for as much as they could, these MMOs have seen their downfalls. If you do not agree with me on the listing of these MMOs, then let me know what you think should fit on this list according to the largest downfalls in MMO history. Without further ado, let's hop onto the imaginary flying car and swerve into the past to look at these disasters in the making. Archeage, an MMO with very good core mechanics, and it does have some pretty interesting aspects, except sometimes publishing companies can take control way too far. They abuse it to give players items that create an advantage for those who purchase them. Like many free-to-play games nowadays, without subscribing, you're at a pretty big disadvantage because of the benefits a subscription gives you, along with the problems that are in the cash shop, such as the $100 hot tub, and being hurt by not actually being a subscriber built up a lot of rage and backlash to the point where Archeage's community was pretty much torn. Archeage built up hype, yet it destroyed itself because of Tryon getting carried away, ultimately resulting in a large drop in player base after entering into open beta. You would think that companies wouldn't let their games become as potent as Archeage had become, yet we still see it happen to this day. It is a shame that good games go to waste because of some greedy people. Age of Conan. Years ago, publishers would often rush their releases, trying to gather friends from other poorly released titles, hoping that they can swoop up a larger player base. Age of Conan released way too early for its own good, so instead of releasing with a well-polished title, and after releasing bug-filled and poorly optimized, many were turned away from the game very early into the game's lifespan. It has survived up to this day, but not without a lot of changes and tweaks to combat the bugs and optimization failure. Age of Conan built up its hype right around the same time that Warhammer released, as well as Wrath of the Lich King, yet made a huge mistake by releasing way too early, similar to how Warhammer's fate served itself. Age of Conan presented a nice pace for the first 20 levels, but after that the gameplay kind of fell off, and endgame was almost non-existent, pretty much leaving the players without a whole lot to do, resulting in the drop-off of a lot of players to where today it has developed a little bit more, but really it won't be able to get as many players as it once could have. Everquest next. Does it get worse than being one of the most hype MMOs and then suddenly being cancelled to never see the light of day? Everquest's next infamous story begins almost the same way that it started, as pretty much nothing, which is upsetting for a lot of MMOers because it was introducing some pretty exciting features, something such as fully destructible environments in an aspect that creates for more diverse PvP because it throws in the possibility for random events such as trees falling down that you would also have to take and consider for, or possibly choosing to escape from an enemy by using the terrain around you, along with giving the players the ability to diverge into the storylines of other Everquest games. It was looking like it could shape up to be one of the more major MMOs in its time. But unfortunately, on March 11th of 2016, Daybreak, who was developing the game, canceled the development saying, and I quote, "As we put together the pieces, we found that it just wasn't fun," end quote. It's a sad sight to see a game be canceled before it even releases, but it's better than not to waste more money in the long haul developing. This story is another one that is part of the major failures of MMO history. Warhammer Online, a game plagued by the oh so poisonous bugs. Warhammer built up its hype as it was gearing for a release, and unfortunately, it came right around the corner from what is known now as WoW's biggest and the peak expansion, which really hurt them. But it wasn't just World of Warcraft that hurt them, it was their own lack of development that truly destroyed the game. As someone who fell in love with the atmosphere and the dreary environments, it saddened me to see how poorly the game became because of how much the bugs affected it, to the point where for many it was unbearably too much, and after a few months, the game's population dropped extensively. Although it had the IP and built up a good amount of hype, its development suffered because EA was pushing for an earlier release instead of letting the development take place to fix all of the bugs. Warhammer Online had some of the largest hype for an MMO, as well as it was one of the largest disappointments for an MMO release in all of history. Black Desert, a beautifully aesthetic game that drew in many of the same players that were hyped for Archeage and more. yet it faced the same problem that Archeage faced. Publishers ruining the game environment due to their greed is unfortunately upsetting, especially in this case when Black Desert had a whole lot of potential to be very, very great until the publisher slowly implemented an item by item to create a pay to win or pay to get an advantage, just like Archeage. Now, if you do not subscribe, or in Black Desert's case, buy the monthly items each month that they are available, you are at a large disadvantage. Black Desert's Downfall is another of many for the Eastern MMOs that we can call quote-unquote westernized, and for many, it was their last straw, alas pushing many away from the genre for a good amount of time. Black Desert offered more than just entertaining gameplay. It also offered having to maneuver laborers to the max of your potential, which was really essential. It also let you, work your skills the way you want to create cool combos to make the combat very refreshing. It's upsetting to lose another game, yet in this case, I would say a stronger game than what Archeage could have been to when it boils down to core mechanics and potential, yet totally lost their fanbase due to a very unsettling few mistakes by Kakao. I'm curious, if you played Black Desert, let me know if you are still playing, and if you aren't, then please let me know why you were turned off by anything Black Desert. Alright, that's gonna do it for me, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, let me know which games you were ultimately failed by in the past. Any of these, if they're not on the list, then let me know what you think should have made the list in the comment section below. It's gonna do it for me, and I'll see you guys in the next one.